So this is a brief overview of the workflow I use for importing and manipulating DXFs to create custom polygon pours, logos, custom text. And I'm creating this because recently I posted on the Element 14 Circuitstudio forum that importing a DXF to the main PCB document was altering the board shape without any without any indication to the user other than you would have to go to 3D mode or notice that the change had happened. And in my case, there were very subtle changes. So what I came up with and use is I have my main PCB document here. And this is where all your nets are connected and your components are added and moved around. And then for every DXF import, whether it's a group of imports or a single import, I create a different PCB doc that's added to the project. And that allows you to work in a sandbox mode where you're not affecting your main PCB document. You can make all of the changes because there are some steps to create a polygon or create different objects from DXFs, and you don't want anything changing your main PCB document. So this is the safest way that I found. So as well as a good way to organize your project. If you have lots of polygon pours, I mean, I just recently completed a project with probably 150 custom polygon pours. So it was vital that I kept everything organized. So I'm going to just show you the workflow, which doesn't take long to get, but I'm going to show you the kind of the little details of moving DXFs in and making polygon pours from text and such. So we'll start with a simple example where I'm going to import into a DXF import layer or file. I'm going to import a DXF that I created, and it's just a spline. And we're going to, so spline, funky shape, could be a logo, could be whatever. But the first step is to either import the document. Here, I'll show you. Import the document onto the top layer, right, like this. Or you're going to want to change the imported line to the top layer, because top or bottom, because the polygon pour tool doesn't work with anything other than the top and bottom layer. So we're going to Control H and select the whole line, and we are this line is in fact, or this spline is in fact on the top layer. We're going to define from selected objects. And it's a kind of very detailed shape with lots of curves, so it's going to take a sec. And you can see we have just a line here, and that is the polygon pour. And the issue is that Circuitstudio defaults to a outline only when you do this, so you have to change it to solid. And select OK, and it's going to re-pour. Okay, and then you can, so you see you have the shape, but you have this offset here, and that this is your DXF line, and this is your polygon pour. And the problem is that this gap is, we're not getting the full extent of our DXF, and the reason why is because the design rule is driving that space, that clearance, and that minimum clearance right now is 10 mil, and I'll drop that to 0. And then you're going to re-pour, and now you have a shape that accurately depicts your DXF. And from here, we can copy this and move it into our main PCB dock. And now you have a copper pour that is based off your DXF, and you can change this to whatever layer you want. To make it, a font or a logo or whatever, or just whatever you need. So that's the entire workflow for moving in a solid shape. So what I'm going to show you next is with text. A lot of times I'll move in text with to put text around a button or something with a nice curve. I'm going to bring that into the top layer. Actually, right now I'm going to leave it on the outline layer because outline is where the default is, which is kind of lame. But I haven't actually tried this. I haven't tried setting it to top layer and saving these settings. But whatever. I'll leave it as outline because that's the default, and I'll show you how to change it. Not that that should be too difficult. So this is how it would come in if you didn't mess with any of those settings as far as the layer settings. And the first thing you do is highlight them all and move them onto the top layer. Okay, so now you have these on the top layer, and we can go through the same deal. We want to Control H, select, define from selected objects. Boom. Control H, define from selected objects. And you might see some funky stuff depending on how big your DXF is. You know, if you have a small DXF, then you can get in trouble with your clearance rules not showing up. So let's change all of these to solid copper regions. And you'll see how the corners cut off here, right? Let's adjust. We got to remove these two options here, and then you'll see it'll fill it nicely. And we still have the gap here, and that's because our design rule is probably set at 1 mil. So okay, so we'll go through, we're going to change this, remove these guys, re-pour, solid. You got to do this with everyone. If the remove dead copper is selected, you're going to have a problem because it's going to delete the I'll show you that. So say this was selected for whatever reason, and you're going to re-pour, and you're going to be like, where's my copper pour? And it's not there because you removed the copper and it's not connected to a net. So let's go ahead and re-pour that. Solid. Solid. Okay, so everything looks good here. I mean, we can go through and change our design rules to make this 0, which is important for the next step, and then re-pour. And so, you know, obviously, if you were to bring this in here, we're going to have those areas, and those, like the O and the P, are going to be filled in, right? So we don't actually want that. So, and then the pour again is being defined by the design rules. So what you want to do is come back in here, and so now that we have this filled, let's get rid of these two spaces in here, right? And the way we do that is it's going to destroy the polygon, and it's going to make it not editable as far as shapes go, but it will allow us to remove those inner parts. So we're going to right click, and we're going to go to polygon actions and explode polygon to free primitives, and then we can delete that inner part. And then we're going to do the same thing over here, and explode to free primitives, yes, and boom. Okay, so now this is just a region now, and you can change the layer of it, but you can't do anything with the shape. So you want to make sure that your design rules, you've changed the design rule to 0 to fill out your DXF shape before doing this, because it's kind of it destroys your polygon. And I don't know of a way to like stitch it back so that it's a polygon pour again. I have no idea how to do that, unless you could maybe go. I haven't tried this actually. Let's try this. Define from selected objects. No. But anyway, here we are. Let's change this over to the top overlay, because we're gonna We're going to want that as and again, it's not showing some of these as changing. That's just like erratic behavior that sometimes happens. But you'll see when I move that into the main project, they'll all be overlays. See, so now we have a nice e-stop, text. You just have to follow those steps in order as far as manipulating the DXF so you don't lose that detail. You don't lose the ability. So that's the way that I currently use DXFs and manipulate them, and it really works well, and it gives you some major flexibility if you have a CAD software like I use SolidWorks, and it gives you a lot of flexibility